So,
so back to that thought.
teachers are human beings, yes.
Yeah, I feel that when I first began dance, for instance, I felt my impression of the people who I was inspired by, who were guiding us through the modern dance, the contemporary, maybe the Moan technique, and contact improv, the things that I was exposed to early on. I had this impression of them.
You turned me on to Lamont, by the way.
Oh, cool.
I just want to interject that.
Nice.
It's absolutely
Nice.
probably my favorite.
This is Susan Hess who turned me into that.
I went to Jim May's class, and unfortunately, he's no longer teaching us lowly beginners, so I had to drop off because, what their idea of a beginner class and my idea of a beginner class when he moved was totally different.
Check out Jennifer Chin.
Maybe I will do that.
She's great.
But tell me, because this is something that I always, I'm always trying to inform people what they can do for their spirit, body, health, and I feel that dance is probably one of the greater modalities to keep you quote unquote fit and happy. When I'm talking fit, I'm talking about here because a lot of the, they don't address this as part of the whole component of being healthy. And there's a way, about dance. There's a flavor that kind of infuses everything you do. You can always tell a person who studied dance, I don't care if they stopped 10, 20 years ago, they still got that, hey, I'm just going to get coffee.
Yeah, but it's strange you say that because I really can relate to what you're saying, but I also see the issue with dance itself being that it's so alien to people who felt out of their body for so much of their early experiences. So to them, they're like, if you just, like, for instance, here at the salon, like, the movement salon, Anthony McNeone and I, like, he's always saying, don't call it dance. We always call it movement because of it tends to scare people. It's like, dance is not for me. I was bad at that at high school. I was bad at that at, I was embarrassed at time.
I totally get it.
It's a repellent, unfortunately. But if we look at dance in the terms of, I think, how we're both talking about it, and again, I keep using these expressions because they're inspiring to me, like, if you can walk, you can dance, if you can talk, you can sing. These kind of inspirations. I feel like when you distract people, again, into the movement of it, and then all of a sudden they realize, like, oh, I just danced. It's they see the function for it.
It took me a solid year, I will admit this on camera, it took me a solid year and a half to take my sweatpants off because I had tights underneath my sweatpants on in ballet. My teacher was just like, when are you going to take those sweatpants off, Because you need to buy some tights. I have on tights, but you have your sweatpants on. I can't see your muscles.
Hilarious.
I don't want you to see my muscles, So one day I finally got the courage to go into class with my tights on, and I'm thinking there's all eyes on me. Of course, everybody else is in tights already, and they're focusing on the class. Nobody cares, And I said, nobody's looking at me, And I did the class. And of course now I feel more comfortable in tights than I do, in other clothes because we're training all the time and you get used to it. Now you see everybody with tights, people on subway with tights.
Absolutely. What I like about tights too,
I can't wear tights.
Trust me, huge section of this.
I cannot take ballet.
It's gonna be hours long on just that topic. But tights also, you feel yourself differently. And that's a whole different.
It holds the muscle in
you
feedback.
Exactly, the feedback loop is very unique, and that's a distraction mode of the floor swimming, or now floor swimming thing is process-wise. One of the first things we do, I feel like is
just take off your tights. No,
just take off your tights. Let's put on each other's tights.
You must take off your tights.
No, like strategically, so to speak, is what happens when you walk into. We've all been, in a schoolyard, so to speak, or some kind of school, unless you're homeschooled. Even then, you have socialization, right?
Hopefully.
So, okay, just ripping off of my experience.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm not going to assume too much.
Ask.
Sorry, exactly. I'll just go with the.
Put that back.
Stop turning light switches off with your toes.
That's bad.
I got that before. Stop using your feet to turn off the light switches.
I thought that was normal.
Me too.
It's
So-
when you can't do it that I'm worried.
In the floor swimming model, so to speak, one of the first things, and I'm a little shy about revealing this, so to speak, is revealing the strategy, but I don't, of course.
Nobody will know this.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. No, just the intention is that one of the first things you have to do is have success. I feel in any class. When I'm teaching a math class, we start in an orientation that everybody can be successful.
Okay.
I think a class is going to take you through successes and challenges. If it's only successful, you're kind of bored. If you're only challenged, you're defeated. And then
Right.
you got to find the right balances of that. And in the floor swimming, people don't even know what that is. They're walking in. They know that depending on where it's offered, because that interfaces into yoga communities, fitness communities, dance communities is where it's most celebrated because that's where it was mostly created for.
Sure.
But
And they're also more open to experimental or different kinds of movement.
right. But you would think so, but oftentimes in the dance communities too, they really specifically don't understand it, so they won't go to it. It's a strange response. But whereas before, we used to have like 40 people in the class at least at times.
Sure.
Other times, it would swell. But there were people who came to the class, then there were trainers, teachers of yoga, of different various modalities. There are people who came on their hour-long lunch break in jeans and did the first hour and then went back to work. Because the way we did it then is a 2-hour class. We do an hour of movement of like very sequential, very relaxed,
Mhm.
comfortable, and then the second hour was like lights are up, music's louder, and we're moving.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people would just take half the class. And so I usually start a class off with everybody comes together and we start with some kind of touch.
Okay.
And that goes with this whole expression I've said for years, and I've used it in different contexts, is in touch we trust.
I see.
So instantly we're humanized. As soon as you walk in the room, we partner up with somebody and you start finding out that you think, I don't know how to touch. But of course you do. And you already get past that. And you start to be like, oh, how's it going? And you communicate.
Probably from your contact improv also.
Actually, that's a deeper story, which I need to come back to, is my father's paralysis as
I
a
see.
child. So, but this is stuff I just thought that everybody did until later on.
Right.
But when I did this touch first, in touch if we trust, everything is by permission, and it's two-way. Touch is two-way. So we start off that way, and we kind of find a way. So okay, boom, 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 and then right after that, we move across the floor. So everybody's successful with no particular choreography except for just pouring gently across the floor. So now you're moving your massage. After
Right.
that, we start to build into progressions, but that's usually a traditional start.
But
Because
your work is very tactile in that when you're moving across the floor with those, you're intentionally making contact with the floor for the purpose of receiving that,
you're
and
making peace with it.
Yeah, and I used to do capoeira in Angola for a long time, and they say tendon day, when you have dende, it's this quality, palm oils, dende, and so you have this quality of emotion, but there's also that interaction with each other where it's that slippery kind of
Absolutely.
acquiescence, I always
Yeah.
call it, acquiesce, make the floor your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that builds trust immediately.
Yeah.
Because I teach older people, as I'm sure you teach older people, and the first thing you hear is they have a trepidation of falling. And even with younger people, honestly, they have an unconscious trepidation of trying things because they were, you're up high, your head's up high in relation to the floor.
Yeah.
And unconsciously, you're always protecting this.
Yeah.
So, the body follows the head. You have to have some way of trusting that you can move and be okay. Because if you don't, there's no way you're going to let go.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to relax.
Yeah.
And we know that relaxation is the key to movement. You cannot move if you're not, relaxed, if you cannot let go. I teach classes specifically on the usage of the letting go, the yin. Everybody wants to go total yang all the time. No. If your hand is this high and you let it go, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of power.
But you
leverage that.
you give them the possibility or the opportunity to experience that. Though. The thing about
Yeah.
this world where fitness is more fixness, I want to be more like this. I want a better butt and gut, or I want a this or that. I want to be stronger at X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
All these things. It's like it's very outside in living, and you're talking about this dropping here has a lot of power is an experiential. It's experiential education that you're offering, and that's kind of the distraction again. You have to help them just get into that experience so that they can then appreciate it. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate because it's the world is changing, right? We're moving in different directions, and hopefully we're
Moving
to
in
different streams
Right.
to the river, you know. But in terms of softening for the resilience, softening for the ability to, like you said, join and everything else. And I worked with a couple of dancers yesterday who are training under me. I have a lot of folks who are training under me to become guides. And one of the things we do definitely is just have experiences. Stop trying to do this because you think you need to learn this to be able to teach somebody. That's what teacher training courses, I think, oftentimes make the mistake. They get people learning some material and they get them practicing on each other, and then they imitate teaching.
Yeah.
I'm not bashing
That's
anything.
a good point.
I'm not bashing anything, but it's like their experience then is, again, sync to the level of your training is your basic training is imitation, which we're mimics, and I get that's part of our process. But as soon as you can, like I'll get somebody in and I'll say, experientially, I was like, tell me something you're good at, and they'll say, what do you mean? Like some movement. Oh, I dance. I'm a dancer. Okay, so show me something that you love. Show me a movement that you love. And they show me, and it's like, great. Teach him. You know. So automatically get to the process of how to offer an experience.
That's why you're a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the hardest thing to convey to people who want to teach. I actually, in a way, I think that teachers are, I think you have to have that aptitude for it.
Yeah, there's different patience level.
Yeah, I think you have to also have that desire inside of you to make sure that that person gets it above all else. Like, it's not about what I'm doing now. It's about me figuring out a way to get you to understand this so that you can pass it on in a genuine manner.
Yeah.
It's one of the problems I have with fixed systems where there's a form, but you don't understand that the form is just a vocabulary
Right.
for talking about these things.
Exactly.
And so if you can't understand what it is that is inherent in these forms, they really are meaningless. They're almost a block
It's
to
exactly,
moving forward.
Absolutely.
You know, if I just teach you A, B, C, D, E, F and just walk away, and you don't go into what A, B, C, D, E, F really means, I've probably done you a disservice. I should have left you alone because maybe you would have discovered more by just fooling around.
Well said, exactly.
So you got a lot. There's just two things before we wrap I just want to touch on this. You have a lot of water. You know, we're talking about 5 elements: earth, fire, metal, wood. You have got a lot of water in your system, in what you do. And I think elementally about it, that's the thing that comes to my mind most, even though there's also a lot of earth, because you have a tendency to release down and to release. And to me, there's that component. Anytime I think about the 5 elements, when I think about the actual exposition of earth, I think about that release, that fact that the earth pulls us, that there's a prominence to it. So as I said before, you have a form for what you do, but you express it in that water. And I was going to ask you, where, because you've studied a lot of things, but I know a lot of people who study those same things, but they don't show the work the way you do. Why water?
I mean, I definitely recognize your description and stuff, and I can tell you that I'm not sure how much of it is nature and how much of it is nurture. You know, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I had a certain resilience growing up in different ways, and like it comes out in so many different expressions. Like I grew up in a neighborhood, and each corner had its own, territory. And
I know. Yeah.
So I mean, I was the guy who, for whatever reason, was able to move between all the different corners. I was able to always be this certain diplomat between everything, and I was like this, so that I couldn't possibly talk about what I was trained in, there was a certain nature in that, you know. Whereas other guys would.
So it's a way of moving through life.
It's a way of moving through life, I think, and so therefore, I when I mentioned to you earlier that the floor swimming back in the day when we were doing things, I was in process. I was like just allowing myself to soften to be in front of however many people. In that case, it was a big deal to have 40. Nowadays, people do hundreds of people at a time. But it was like to sit there and be available, just soften myself enough to capture this person's moving across the knee, tight hips, this person seems inhibitions in their neck, this person's this, okay, and then the next pass would be something that would address those things. And it was experimental and experiential. I was available. So
I see.
It's a different, and I think that's like trying to train intuition. I don't know, you have to have experiences.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I also want to give, so to speak, credit to one other experience. Is my father, I mentioned earlier, was paralyzed. And so he overcame paralysis multiple times because his paralysis was through strokes. He was a heart attack and stroke.
I see.
So from the time I was 8 to the time I was 18, we were told he had 6 months to live. And so I feel like that is a huge influence on my way. Now I acknowledge it. Back for a long time I didn't acknowledge or understand it, but I get it now that it's not a secret, it's not a confusion that I involved in movement when that was the case, but his progression was often, we thought he was dying, emergency, blah, 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 this crisis management, and then you're in it, and then you're through the process, and then doctors tell you only have X amount of time to live, then he's home, and we're doing our own intuitive rehab. So we would move for him, we would talk to him. My mother's devout Catholic, so prayer was a big part of it as well. So belief.
Sure.
And then we would ask him, and we had developed, language. Blink once for yes, no, twice for no. Different things of this, like, Dad, moving his hand. Do you want to move your hand today? And he would blink no if he didn't want to. But if he wanted to, then you would move it for him a bunch of times. Want to try? And all of a sudden you get a little tweak, and then you would go through that process. And it was a patient
patience. Unbelievable.
From 8 to 18, we had various amounts of this over and over and over again. And you really tapped into listening differently to everything. And so I feel like that was a huge influence on then how I was through that was my nurturing big time. And it's also, part of why I had a certain healer complex, because as a kid, as you're 8 years old and you're being told you have magic hands when you're massaging him when you can finally speak again, he's like, you healed me. And you're like, and so you gave yourself permission. And that's probably the biggest thing I would say is give yourself permission to recognize and celebrate the joy of movement in whatever you're doing. And whatever you're doing, like, just take a moment.
Amount of joy in what you do, yeah.
Recognize that if you're standing at the subway, whatever it is, yes, you can get on your phone, or yes, you can do all these different things, these like sort of weapons of mass distraction.
Yeah, I got you.
Or you can kind of get into I'm shifted over this side, notice things. And because I was around my father through this process too, I would be around a lot, just still and noticing things.
As I would shift on the couch.
Exactly. As well as he was a martial artist and a fighter, and he was a military man, and I guess he taught me to meditate as a child. He taught me a lot of different things.
So really you've been training pretty much all your life.
To some degree, without knowing it, And then my sisters are Reiki master in multiple levels of different things, as well as a nurse. And, so we kind of had our healing direction as healing arts as well,
I didn't know that.
But we're definitely, I think curiosity and joy are huge components for, so to speak, successful,
Well, we're gonna wrap on curiosity and the joy, and I think that it couldn't have left on a better note in terms of letting people know the roots, of trusting themselves and doing what is necessary to take care of yourself and paying attention. So I'm hoping that you show us a little movement magic.
Okay. And now,
I want to see.
All right.
So I can steal some more. I gotta steal some more stuff.
Well, we definitely have been together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
You are such a nut. Oops. Hello. This is being done by a trained professional on a closed circuit course, ladies and gentlemen. So be aware that this is something that you may want to consult before attempting on your own.
The fun thing here is that the machines tip. So part of the process, learn how to hang rather than pull.
Learning how to hang rather than pull.
That's a part of the story too.